All right. Well, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for being here today. I want to just thank you for taking the time during your busy day, because I know what it's like being a professional and every minute counts. And sometimes even our best laid plans don't always work. So I want to get us started just taking 1 minute of our time to set our presence. Maybe you've had a really busy day for the morning and you just need to reflect on what we're going to be doing for the next hour. And with that, I really believe that the more we're engaged and the more present, the more we can learn together. So I'm going to set my timer for 1 minute, and I'm going to encourage you to participate in some just deep breathing. You can do it through breathing in through your nose, out through your mouth. You could do this for about 5 breaths and then take it into a normal pace with your breathing. I'm going to turn on a little soft music, and when the timer goes off, we will reconvene. If you're comfortable, you can close your eyes, and if not, that's fine as well. Okay. I know I found this practice helpful to start my day, but also sometimes in the middle of the day, it sounds like you can't fit one more thing in, but having a minute just to ground yourself can be really helpful. It can also help the team that you're working with as well. So we did make a couple introductions with names. If we could go and just briefly talk about how long you've been in your profession or your career, or a little bit about the direction you're going, just a brief 30-second. And then I'd like to talk about your energy level right now on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being my energy level is so low, with 10 being the highest. And the reason I share this practice with you is when you're working with a team and you set out to have those strategy meetings or team meetings, it's really a great idea to kind of know where everyone's at. So could I ask, Amanda, do you have mic capability, or you can chat?
He is chat box only, I believe.
Chat box only. Okay. Well, feel free if you'd like to put that in there. Just a couple, 3 sentences about your profession, your certain current profession or position, and then your energy on 1 to 10. And Monica, do you have your speaker on? Looks like we lost Monica.
Oh, she comes back.
She'll come back, yeah. Sometimes we get kicked off and we don't even know. Amanda still, I can't see a chat box at my view, but.
Oh, I'll read it for you. I've been in banking here for 7.5 years and have been a manager here for just over a year. I'm a new leader here and very excited to grow. My energy is a solid 8, always could be more, never less.
Wow, that's impressive. Yeah, very impressive. Thank you. So with that, we'll move on and talk about our time together today. We're going to learn about some most common research-based traits of effective leaders and how you can strengthen your understanding of what motivates team members. And I really do believe our best learning comes with engagement and interaction. So please feel free to stop me at any time. And I'm going to be asking for your input. Felicia, I'll probably have to rely on you to help me with the chat box if anyone does write things, because I'm not able to see it on the view that I have with my presentation. So a little bit about me. I have over 30 years of experience in the business world and also as a superintendent. I've led teams sizes from 2 to 52. And I've done this in with what I believe great strides to make success and not only bring a team forth to be the best it can be, but work diligently on working on the individuals of that team, because a team is only as good as the weakest member of the team. And so I think it's very important that we work and bring everyone's talents out. And when we need help with strengthening areas, then that we do that as a team. My purpose to put my consultation business together is because I really believe that Stanislaus County has amazing people here. And the more that I can come alongside and work with individuals and teams to strengthen their leadership capacity, it will just make our community a better place. Leadership really does matter. And leadership comes in many forms. And so I truly believe that everyone is a leader. And they sometimes haven't had the opportunity to just work on strengthening their talents and what they're really good at. I've always felt that being a leader is a part of my purpose for being here, and I've always taken great responsibility in leading. So some of the research-based traits that I'll be talking with you about come from several of the names you're going to hear, I'm sure, as we go along here. I spent many years researching effective leadership traits, not only in the business world, but in the educational world. Some will say that there are 4 traits, some will say there are 6, some will say 14, and then there's others that's within that spectrum. Today, I'm going to share with you what I have found to be the most commonly identified traits of effective leaders, and the ones that I've utilized in my profession with working with business and with teams. So you might know a little bit about Carolyn Dweck's work. She's an American psychologist, and she wrote a book that first came out in 2006 called Mindset. And she talks a lot about the difference between a fixed mindset and a growth mindset. And so, as you probably know, a fixed mindset is someone that truly believes you're born with the traits you're born with, and you're really not going to probably get that much different. And some fixed mindsets don't even want to attempt to learn something new because they feel how they do it is fine. The knowledge that they hold is great, and they're not at a place where they want to acquire new knowledge yet. Where a growth mindset is always looking to improve the knowledge base, learning, finding the newest way that's the most effective way. And they're really willing to take a challenge and a chance to grow in that area. So being an effective leader doesn't happen for everyone overnight. Well, probably doesn't happen for anyone just overnight, but it really does take practice. And first thing that you really have to do is be able to know your strengths, and then to be able to come in and also identify the areas that you need to focus on. It's truly about learning all about your self-awareness and who you are. And with this, you get a full picture, and you can start taking action and working on the areas that you need to develop more, and then also sharing and helping colleagues, team members grow in their areas. So you may have heard or taken tests like Myers-Briggs or the Enneagram or leadership practices. And so Amanda, since I have you on chat, I'll just ask you if you would like to write in the chat anything that you've taken in those terms of personality assessment, leadership traits assessment. And if not, that's okay, because we can dig deeper into that area. So what I'd like you to do is take a little time right now. You're going to jot your answers down and keep them to your side. I'm going to ask you in a little later in the presentation to share some of your answers. But I want to ask you, who would you say motivates you as a leader? So it could be someone that you've known in the past, someone that was a mentor to you, an instructor, someone you worked for in the past. It could be someone right now that you're working with or know or is mentoring you. And then what qualities does she or he display that is motivating to you? So what are some qualities that really attracts you to this leader? And then what is the one area of focus as a leader that you yourself are currently working to improve? So I'm going to set the timer for a couple minutes and check in with you. So if you could just write those down. How is that for time, Amanda? Do you need more time?
Did she just put in the chat? I'll go ahead and read it out loud.
Okay.
She said, I have done the color test. I am majority blue and red. I've also done a coaching class that was very helpful to learn how to ask for the answers instead of telling them, so I can bring them to our moments, and that it makes it to where they own the answer instead of it being me telling them what to do or how to act. Also, I sat in on a new supervisor webinar. This is my third leadership activity.
That's very good. Well, you and I already have something in common, Amanda, because I've taken the same test. I think the color code is what you're talking about. And I'm a blue-red too. So, wow, that's great. So keep your answers to these 3 questions to your side, and I'll be asking you to respond shortly as we move on to the next slide. So these are the most common traits, and these are taken directly from Harvard Business School, Forbes, Lencioni's work, and Covey's work. And vision is truly at the top when you look at the majority of the research-based results. And we're going to talk about each one of these areas in just as we go along here. In part 1 today, we're going to get into them briefly, talk about the domains and the subdomains within. But then when we come back for part 2, which is going to be in May, we're going to really dig deeper into the domains. And I'm going to give you practical applications to use as a leader, or whatever your position as a leader, or if you're also leading teams. So vulnerability is the next one. And people often mistake vulnerability. And so I'm looking forward to getting into that and talking a little bit about what that really means. Leading by example goes hand in hand with demonstrating integrity. So I put them together. And then communicate effectively is another most common trait. And motivate and inspire is the last of the 5.
Deborah,
Yeah.
can we pause for a moment? Amanda asked while she was writing, she didn't see the previous slide. Could you go back just for a second for her? And then,
Of course.
thank you.
We do have one more person that will be joining us shortly. They just emailed me.
Okay, great. Well, this would be a very good place for that person to come in as well. So that's perfect timing.
I've done a couple of personality tests as well, Deborah.
Which ones, Felicia?
I have done the Myers-Briggs and the Enneagram.
Oh, okay.
So I am ENFP, I believe, for Myers-Briggs,
Yeah.
and then the Enneagram I'm number 2.
Number 2. Did you find those helpful?
I did. It was surprising because both of them are tailored. They're tailored a little bit differently as far as like personality wise. Some of the main traits are in there, but there's some that are a little why I relate more to a 2, or I relate more to the ENFP side of things. So you have your core, but at the same time, it can vary for personality.
Yeah, that's so true. Yeah, I find, and I've taken Myers-Briggs more than once, and it hasn't changed, but I find areas that I think, now I even get that more. So I find it's very interesting.
Have
Well,
you done the Enneagram personality test yet?
so I haven't, but it's interesting that you say that because I'm in with this group of people and we're meeting next month, and that's what we're doing together because yeah, I've heard really good things about it. Yes, so I'm excited. I'll let you know what I am.
Okay, good.
Yes,
Hello, Brian.
Hi, Brian. We're just right here on this slide answering these questions. So you'll just jot down your answers and keep them to the side, and we'll move on in just a few minutes. Welcome.
Sounds good. Thank you. Thank you, Felicia.
Oh, you're welcome. I always feel like we need music in these things. I think I've said that on a couple different Zoom meetings.
Hey, this is your karaoke moment right here.
Oh, no. No. Let's keep it professional. Nobody wants to hear me singing. Although my coworkers will sometimes hear me in the office.
Thank you for that cue. I just turned my soft music back on. I don't know if you can.
Deborah, on the second one, are you asking what qualities did I display that motivate me?
So the person that comes to mind that motivates you as a leader,
Oh, okay.
what are the qualities that she or he display that just is magnetic to you and draws you to that person as a
I
leader?
got you. Okay.
And then the last one, Brian, is talking about ourselves. What's the one area we're working on?
Okay.
Amanda, how's the time for you? Were you able to get your answers down? Brian, Amanda's communicating with us through the chat. So we have different forms going with communication, which is great.
Right.
She said yes, thank you. But I think she asked if we're doing it right now, but we're waiting till later, correct?
I have questions built into the next few slides to answer them.
Okay.
Yes. So this is we were talking just a moment ago about some common traits. So, I've always been fascinated by leadership, and I've studied both the business world and the educational world on what are the most effective traits. And so this is a culmination of Harvard Business School, Forbes, Lencioni's work, Covey's work. And so first and foremost, vision is agreement that it's like at the top. And we're going to delve into these as I go through the slides. Today's part 1, so I'm going to touch upon them, but part 2, which is next month, we're going to go even deeper. So vulnerability is another aspect of effective leaders. Being able to lead by example, demonstrating integrity, those go hand in hand. And then being able to communicate effectively. And then the motivation and inspiring, because, a lot of leaders can get the vision down, the vulnerability, all of that. But how do you motivate people? Because we know that doesn't happen the same for everyone. So with vision, leaders with vision, they have to have a clear idea of where they want to go, how to get there, and what success looks like. So it's like having that picture, that result, and then everything you do leads you to that end result. And in the educational world, business world calls it different things too. It's like that backwards mapping, like what's your end point, beginning with the end in mind, right? And then making your steps backwards. What are you going to do to get there? They exuberate confidence. And that doesn't just come naturally for all leaders, but it comes with the more that you have that vision down, where you're going. Of course, you're going to be able to appear much more confident. And being the visionary, like being the one to have some ideas. Now, granted, you can't be the only one doing that, but as a leader, you got to be able to have that skill to be a visionary. You want to be clear and passionate when you're articulating your vision to your team members or colleagues. And because they need to understand it, and what they most need to understand is how they as an individual fit into that and can help the team move forward. You also have to be, as a leader, many of you do this in your job all the time, you got to be persistent. You have to show your enthusiasm, and you have to, again, be inspiring and encouraging. So building part of this is also being transparent. So the more you're open about your vision, where you see the team going, the more team members are going to understand their purpose. Because a leader can be a great leader, but if no one's following them, right, they're not really a leader. So individuals on that team need to have a clear understanding. Moreover, exceptional leaders have to have the ability to look at their company or their organization and be able to have clear, concrete goals that will benefit that organization. And then they have to bring in that confidence level again and being optimistic and inspiring the enthusiasm around the whole team to rally around for what the vision is. Being a visionary also means understanding that you have to be able to change. You can have great ideas, but you can't be stagnant. You have to be flexible, and you have to be able to know that times we have to pivot. It's just what we have to do. And if COVID hasn't taught us that, I don't know what will, because boy, that was a slap in the face for many of us. We have to be adaptable, agile, and have our strategies going. When we come back on part 2 and narrow down, I really want to narrow down and talk to you about, even though you have these greatest plans, these strategic plans, where you're going, there are times when you have to stop and deal with something, because if you don't, it's going to get in your way. So kind of knowing that difference when you do stop and take a breath and refocus or go to a different direction. And so we'll be talking about that more. So when we talk about vulnerability, this is something that Patrick Lencioni this is what he believes is the most critical trait for a leader. In fact, he has some wonderful videos, and I'll bring some with me on my presentation for our time together next time. But they really have to know their limitations. They have to know their strengths, and they have to know what their areas of focus are. And you have to be vulnerable in that, because the key is you bring people alongside you that complement you and that have strengths in areas you don't. And so in order to do that, you got to admit that. You got to be vulnerable with that. And also, a lot of leaders are afraid to admit the things that they're not good at. Some leaders will say, I can't admit that to my team. That's going to show a sign of weakness. But in all actuality, you being vulnerable allows your team members to be vulnerable. And that's how true team building transpires, is when one team member leans on another team member, because you're better at this skill than I am. But if we come together, we're going to move the team along. We're going to move the organization along. And it's not about wearing the individual hat in those times. It's worrying about wearing the team hat. So another thing that being vulnerable, it shows people you're authentic, that you're a real person, right? You're not just someone that wears the leader sign or has a sign outside their door, but you're authentic. And you have to be able to get to a place to feel comfortable about this. Here's an area that I really had to grow in as a leader. I worked in a profession, like most of us, where confidentiality is like key, especially being in the HR world for as many years as I was. That word really meant to the nth degree. But so with that, sometimes I felt like I couldn't always share some of my backgrounds or things in personal life. And now I'm not talking about the buddy where you feel you have to be close with your most intimate feelings, but I'm talking about sharing some things. And there's a great exercise that I've used with teams to where you share just something that you struggled with, maybe when as a child or something, and you go a little as deep as you can as a leader to be that first one to be vulnerable. And you show people that you're human, you're authentic, but because of things that we've struggled with in the past, they might have an impact on some of our decision making that we're currently making. But the more we get to know people, the more we can work with that. So when we moved into the vulnerability with transparency, here's a quote from Lencioni. As a result, a leader modeling and building transparency within the organization, they build companies that clients trust, stick with, and enthusiastically recommend to others. And so I'm not going to only say clients here, because we all have clients, right? But we do have volunteers sometimes in our organization as well. But let's just think about the clients aspect. If you have a client and they're dealing with a salesperson, and the salesperson is vulnerable and transparent and is not acting like they're just out to get the client, I think you're going to find you'll have a lot more repeat visitors just by teaching your team members how to have that vulnerability. And so I want to ask you right now, going back to a couple slides ago, when you filled out the information about someone that inspires you, did vulnerability, transparency, or did vision come out as one of those things that you listed? And Amy, if you would want to put that in the chat, that would be great. Brian, does anything come to mind for you?
Yeah, actually, Linsoni I love, by the way. But yeah, so I pick somebody that I look up to that helps people, and I brings vision to life. And when you talk about characteristics, I had transparency, honest. I know, especially being new, and that's kind of why I'm here today, being new to the nonprofit world, what I'm looking for in relationships is that honesty. There's nothing worse in a business relationship when you're going down the wrong path, right path, somebody tells you you're going down the right path and you find out you're going down the wrong path. So when you can get together and be vulnerable, or even when I like leaders, in fact, I just had a lunch with somebody that's mentoring me. I just started mentoring relationship with, and I love that he said, well, I would look for this, and this moving forward. And so I just really value that.
Yeah.
Deborah,
Yes.
Amanda wrote, honesty was something I listed, and that it is a vulnerable trait to me. She is also encouraging, and she also supported my growth. So this is someone that she's speaking about.
Very good. Yeah, those are critical characteristics.
For myself, I put authenticity.
Oh, okay.
I have a couple of different mentors, leaders, supervisors that is the connection that I hold value to, and I myself try to be is authentic and transparent when it comes to my relationship.
That's really good, Felicia. And you know what? Authenticity comes with growth, doesn't it? And we continue to find that out about ourselves. I know. Thank you very much. So leading by example and demonstrating with integrity. The leaders with integrity, they draw their values to guide their decisions, their behaviors, and dealings with others. And you know a good leader when they are in an organization where their core values are aligned with that organization. And everybody that they or their team hires in that organization has the same core values or close to be able, as the core values or vision as the organization. And so they have to really have clear convictions about what's right or wrong. And I have found that consistency is one of your best friends in this area, because when you're a leader and you have to make those tough decisions, well, you have to be consistent, because you might have one of your team members that comes to you that in a former life was a best friend. And all of a sudden they're wanting something or asking something of you. That's not something you would say yes to everyone. So I think integrity really means too that whatever you say to one, you say to all, because favoritism in that area does not fare well when people are looking at you to say, do you really do the right thing all the time? People with integrity also are respected for being genuine, principled, ethical, and then the word consistent comes up again. People watch. They not only watch hear what we say, which is very important. We're going to talk a little bit about communication. They watch what we do, and that more than anything, and the way we model ourselves. So it's very critical. In a survey consulted by a firm, the firm Robert Half, over 75% of the employees ranked integrity as the most important attribute of a leader. So, you know, how I think people have a hard time following a leader or respecting a leader if they don't show integrity. So integrity comes with that fairness, but also that instilling confidence in others, right? Because someone with integrity wants to be a confident, genuine person, and they want others to as well. And they also communicate their expectations without blindsiding people. So here's an example. You know, if you're not a good communicator as a leader, or you purposely do not communicate as a leader, and then all of a sudden you have a team member or two that went down the wrong path because your communication wasn't clear, well, there's a sign of integrity when those team members feel like they're being, you know, that statement of thrown under the bus. So it's really important to keep your lines clear on that piece. As a leader, the best way to build your credibility and gain the respect of others is to set the right example. So, you know, we talk about that, you know, walk the talk. It is so true and so critical. People want to follow you, and when you set high standards for them, but first and foremost is when you set high standards for yourself and you meet it. And another thing I found over the years is I would never ask a colleague, team member of mine to do something that I'm not willing to do myself. And at times, literally, you have to get in there and do the work, the roll up your sleeves. If it's a physical work outside, I mean, whatever it takes, you have to be there as a leader to get to show people that you really do have that sense of integrity. So aligning your words with your actions is critical. And with my consulting business, I do a coaching, which is really aligned with aligning those core values of who you are and your purpose and why you're here, and then putting that to match in the position that you're in. And so when you can find that alignment, you really can soar as a leader. So communicating effectively. I can't say this enough. Clarity, clarity, clarity. Powerful leaders know when to talk and they know when to listen. So part of communication is listening. They have to be effective communicators. So let's leave the side of communicating your vision and your goals and everything right now, because that's on this side of the house, but we're going to set it aside for a moment. And we're going to talk about how, and Amanda said a beautiful thing earlier in her chat, where she talked about she's been part of a coaching training where they really lead you on how you lead people to come to their own answers or own conclusions. And you do that by asking the right questions. Because it's not always the leader telling you what to do. It's the leader having the skill to be able to know your strengths, but get you to know your strengths and how you carry out your position. So people have to really know that you are a good listener and that you care. You know, caring is critical, and that's part of being an authentic self. So now I want to talk a little bit about moving it back over to your communications when you're talking about your vision and moving your teams. So all of your communication has to be aligned. So whatever you may give in a team meeting as, hey team, this is where we're going, this is our focus, this is how I see you coming along and supporting. I'm going to look forward to your input. I'm going to look forward to your ideas. And from that point on, email communication that goes out, any video conferencing, anything that happens, especially one-on-one meetings with team members, all has to loop back around to that message. And you will feel like you are saying it over and over and over again. And people are probably getting tired of hearing you say it, but that's really not the truth. It's not the truth because people need to hear it repeated and they need to make sure that they're clear on the message that you're delivering. So the more you can speak of clarity, the better you'll be. And backing it up with your behavior, because you can say one thing, but until they see your behavior and your actions, they may feel differently. And a little statistic for you is people need to hear the message, the same message, a minimum of 7 times. So again, as a leader, that feels pretty redundant sometimes. And as a leader, you're thinking after time 2 or 3, it's like, why, come on, I've already said it a couple, 3 times. But no, it's just human nature. It's just who we are. Plus they need to hear it 7 times because they'll get more clarity each time they hear it. So in part 2, when we come back next month, there's a, and you'll know this, Brian, with Lencioni, he has this form of cascading. How do you cascade that information? So it comes from the top, but how do you get all of your department leads and all the people that need to carry that message down to where every single person in your organization knows it? And that's a key area. So motivate and inspire. Oh my gosh, I love this part. It's one of the best parts, but it can be sometimes the most complex part about being a leader. The best leaders drive their teams forward with passion and enthusiasm and inspiration. I mean, it's like you have to get so excited about it that they're so excited about it. You know, I mean, how would it doesn't have any other chance except just to kind of drip down on everyone. And I know that sounds a little too sweet for some people, but I think we all love those type of leaders. Another thing we have to be aware of is with motivate and inspire, there's one thing that people need to know. They need to know they feel that you value them, right? And so picking out the strengths in someone and letting them know that you value that will be wonderful relationship builder for you, especially when you need to come alongside someone and work with someone that has some skills that they need to either more fully develop, or you need to bring in some reinforcements for that. So that's really critical with motivating. And if you know John Maxwell's work, he always talks about that people really don't care how much you know. They don't care if you have a doctorate from Harvard. They want to know you're intelligent enough to be the leader and they have vision. But what they care about is that they want to know that you care about them as a member. And influencing others requires building trust and focusing on that understanding. So I want to look at my time. Okay, I think I'm doing pretty good on time. I want to talk about bringing out the best in people, and that is really a skill that we all have to work on. And what motivates someone? I, coming from the business world before I went into education, I was pretty much just business minded. In fact, I had a good sense of intrinsic motivation, right? And I responded more to verbal, and that's really about all I needed. But working with many, many people over the years, we got to understand our folks. And some people are motivated differently. Some people are motivated more by acknowledge them in a group with certificates and awards. And some people are not. Like if you do that to them, it's mortifying and you'll lose them. Some people are more motivated because they like to have a nice note left on their desk. Where some people are more motivated by you having a face-to-face conversation, giving them that verbal acknowledgement. So finding out your people is critical, because building relationships, because in the end, when something implodes, and it will, if you don't have the relationships built with the people, they're not going to follow you as a leader. So you got to build those relationships. And the other thing you have to do is celebrate, celebrate, celebrate. Celebrate even the littlest accomplishments. So for instance, we're trying to get a communication out by Friday. We do it every Friday. Probably no big deal, but man, it was a big deal this week. So we're going to celebrate it. And then we're going to celebrate all the little stuff leading up to the big accomplishments with our goals. But celebrate, celebrate. It is critical. So looking back now on some of the skills that you had written down, did communication, motivation, inspiration, any of those come to mind, Brian and Amanda and Felicia?
Ladies first.
A couple of traits that I had also put down was opportunities for growth. So allowing leaders to have their team members have opportunities for growth in those areas that they are not as strong in, that helps them develop professionally, but also builds confidence.
Love it.
Clear communication was one. Some of these you've already touched on. I would like to also put in an understanding of emotional intelligence or emotional quotient. I don't know if anybody is aware of that, but I feel like that's something leaders should have or try to develop, because that helps them communicate to the different personalities and know how to work with different individuals.
Thank you for that. That's really good. Thank you.
Amanda is in the chat, so Brian, why don't you go ahead?
Okay. So communication is I have that in there, and then but also kind of a subcategory of a lot of people. You hear the buzzwords a lot, and communication is always one of the big buzzwords. But I think communication means the way you communicate. I've always loved the quote from Malcolm X that some people they take it literally, and I take it more metaphorically. He said in an interview one time, "I can't speak to the white man because the white man doesn't speak my language." And so since I was young, that's always resonated with me, that communication is about the language that you speak. And I've accidentally always done that, like, depending on what neighborhood I'm in or what group of people I'm with, my communication style is kind of that way. When I tell stories, same thing. When I talk about my past, same thing. So I think that's important, because you have to have the message received for the communication to happen. And I think in this world, we just think an email. I sent an email, you didn't get it. It's just communication. And then transparency is another buzzword that I had. And it's transparency is I can put our budget up and say that I'm transparent, but if you don't understand how to read budgets, how transparent am I? And so finding ways to, again, going back to communication, is how do you know that message is being received? And then the last one I had is I think the hardest one, the higher you climb. I definitely know when I became a dean at the college, this was the hardest, was making time for everybody. So you've got your workload, you've got your projects, you got your board on you got everybody like doing everything. And then everybody wants that one-on-one time with you as well. And so trying to find that balance in there, and I think is really important that as a leader, you do not let that be the thing you sacrifice.
Very good. Yeah, those are really good thoughts.
Looks like that posted now.
Amanda has go ahead and put her answer in the chat. She said, "I receive encouragement always from my boss. She has constantly inspired me to do and be better. She also taught me that oversharing and communicating is better than not enough." And I totally agree with that.
That's true. So true. So here's some effective traits of the leader that we talked about. Out of these, I'd ask for you to identify one of an area, and even if it's not listed here, please share an area that you're currently, that's a focus for yours. You've been thinking about it. You might be working on it, What's one of those areas that you're in process of getting better? Alicia, do you mind starting?
Sure. I don't know where this lands in, but I put down delegating.
Okay.
That sometimes I feel like I need to take on everything, and knowing that I need to ask for help or give it to somebody that's more skilled than I am in a certain area. But that would help with the overall goal instead of me trying to worry about taking care of everything.
Okay. But you know what? I kind of see that going, I mean, that's motivating to others when you ask them like to create something. That's motivating because it says, I believe in you and that you have the skills that can do this. It's also being vulnerable as a leader too, you know? So I see that falling in different places. So for you.
Yeah. I would add to Felicia's, and I'll say mine, but I would add to Felicia's. I agree with that. And I think something that gets missed in the workplace a lot, I used to say this in my old job, is a lot of people are always looking for the medal, the trophy, the certificate, that moment. And I take the work as that moment. When I'm given work by my boss or by other people, I take that as the award. Like, they trust me enough to run this, they trust me enough to be in charge of this, or they trust me enough to take this task on. So to me, that is the plaque or the trophy or the certificate kind of in that. I have the biggest thing that I try to work on. I probably brought in a list of about 20 to 30 things I wanted to improve when I took this job. And the two biggest ones is the ability to listen and to not try to be right or to try to prove myself right. And so I get excited about the work. I become kind of a slobbering dog. And especially if it's something in my wheelhouse, I want to just go. And I've learned if you don't bring people along, then it's about you and it's not about them. They don't buy in, and that creates enemies or animosity, a lot of that. And then not being overly frustrated, which is a hard one, especially I think in our world, there's doers and talkers, and I don't do well with the talkers. And so I'm trying to work on that a little bit because I want to see the results and do the work and not spend a year talking about it.
Yeah. Very good reflections.
We have Amanda who put in the chat, people have different communication styles. Sometimes things need to be said different ways so everyone understands. For me, I'm always looking to improve my communication. I can delegate things, and even though I explain what I need, I find that it often comes back to me and I have to communicate. Sorry, give me just a second. Communicate what is effective once more, or expected once more, I'm sorry. I want to have effective communication so I don't need to constantly be explaining what is needed. I'm learning my people and how to navigate this growth for myself and them. Yes, I understand that feeling about talking and doing, Brian.
Yeah. Wow, Amanda, that is so true, especially because when you're delegating, you probably have a million other things on your plate. So you explain it to the person you're delegating in a way that you think it should come across, right? But then if they don't have the clear message, you have to, you said it perfectly. You have to wrap back around and redo it. So that is a skill, and good for you, because just being able to acknowledge that's an area. So yeah, kudos to you. So, Lencioni, and I know I'm reciting a lot of him, but I think he's amazing. I've followed his work a lot. I really believe that there's two motivators that a person has in mind when they decide to take on a leadership role. And again, I'm going to share that I believe leadership is everywhere in your organization. Obviously, there's top leaders that have to lead, but everyone is a leader, right? They can be a leader in so many capacities. But when you choose to be a leader, you usually either do it being more of a servant leader or a recipient of rewards. And I'm not here to say that there's only one way. I know my style, which is more of a servant leader, but just to leave this as thought for us, that servant leaders usually understand that there's some sacrifice and suffering a little bit that has to happen in the pursuit of serving others, right? And people that are after the reward see leadership as a prize of years of hard work. I've worked hard at this for so many years. I deserve this. I should get this. I have status. I have power. I have money. And there are people like that, right? But a servant leader has more, in my opinion, is often better at leading people because they're motivators just by the way that they serve in their leadership role. And so I really believe this aligns everything we've talked about on being a leader. You know, it's a huge responsibility being a leader. It doesn't just come easy, and it's something that has to be earned. It really does. So I just want to thank you for this time. We're almost out of time, but I look forward to part 2 next month. We could get a little deeper into the areas. And if there's anything that you would be willing to share with me in the way of comments or things for feedback from me, I'm going to give you my contact information after this. But so we're going to dig a little deeper next time. And then we're going to look at some strategies that we can utilize to get even better. And I wrote down some of the areas you're focusing on so I can help bring some things back for that. And how do we motivate the others in becoming effective leaders? So anyone that you might delegate work for, you are a leader to them. And so using the skills that you've learned over the years from mentors or from putting into practice is a perfect way to carry those skills down. And that's really what makes an organization great. So if you have any thoughts or reflections at this time, and I know we're almost out of time, you can leave them in the chat box and I can pick them up. But you can contact me at my email address here, and I'll also give you my cell phone number. I don't have it written down, but I can give it to you. It's 209-499-2742. And I would love feedback or things that you would like me to bring to you next month. That would be amazing. I would get on that right away. So thank you for your time. I'm very, very appreciative of your time. And thank you for this learning opportunity.
Thank you, Deborah. Very helpful.
Thank you, Deborah, and thank you everybody who attended. If you have any questions, I did put my contact email in the chat box as well for any next training. Please feel free to share this with other people as we start to plan for the next session. We will be promoting it right after this. The next one is, if I pull my calendar up quickly, maybe not so quickly, give me a moment here. Like Deborah said, it's going to be part 2 of this, and that will be on the 12th of next month. And everybody that has attended, I will do a follow-up email to let you know the date again and registration for it as well. And Deborah, I'd just like to thank you very much for presenting. I think we all got a little something out of this today.
Good. Thank you, Felicia, for the opportunity. Thank you, Amanda.
Thank you.
So very much. Thanks, Brian.
Welcome. Bye all. Bye, Felicia.
Have a good day.
Bye.